Welcome everyone to this edition of Rossiter's Ringside Report. I'm Mark Chang. I'm joined by the head coach of the Annandale Boxing Program, Leo Rossiter. And we are here after the conclusion of the Jeddah Promotions Pro Boxing event, September 20th at Rosecroft Raceway. What are your overall thoughts on the event itself?
Well, my overall thoughts is it was a fairly good show. There was some fairly evenly matched. There was one controversial decision that the guy got a split decision win, and one judge had it a draw, which what I thought was a very close fight. And then two judges had the other gentleman ahead by 2 points. Sure thing.
So
all in all, it was a pretty good show. It was a couple stoppages, but the stoppages I think were, it didn't look like a blowout. It looked like a decent stoppage. The guys fought a little bit, and one guy was a little, heavier-handed than the other, and the referee stopped it, which nobody questioned. There was no bruise or anything. It was a good stoppage. Then there was one questionable fight, and that goes back to the when that fight. It was a fight where a guy was down, and the other guy, bam, nailed him, and he was completely down, and the referee did nothing about it. That was a very questionable judgment call by that referee.
for that fight, the referee, she was so out of position. She was on the other side of the action. Doubt she even saw it happen. As soon as she saw that the one fighter was down, then she came over. But yeah, before she was able to separate the opponent, I counted at least two very clean head blows while the fighter was down. So furthermore, I think she should have stopped that bout and saved a lot of unnecessary punishment. But also, you got to blame the corner on this, because the corner knows they're fighting. The corner can see, okay, he doesn't have the skills to match up. If you don't have the skills, you better have the conditioning. He didn't have the conditioning to match up. And C, if you don't have the skills or the conditioning, then you better have the power. But none of the shots he landed gave any evidence that he would have been able to win that fight by stoppage. So, the referee in the corner, I thought should have stopped that fight. The second bout was Ibrahim Robinson, this is the bout that you were referencing, versus Kashif El-Amin. That, to my opinion, was the fight of the night. Like you said, it was so close. I had it, I would say a draw, but it could have gone either way. Very competitive fight. Kashif El-Amin, congratulations on a great effort. And Ibrahim Robinson, hats off to you for taking on such a tough fight. Both of you, great account of yourselves. Anything else on that fight? That was a war, man.
No, the only
fight you see anywhere.
No, the only other comment I had was about this kid O'Connor. Patrick O'Connor, typical Irish name, and he comes out wearing all red and stuff, so some of his fans end up sitting in front of us. So I asked him if maybe he was Protestant, because in Ireland the Catholics wear the green, and it's a symbol of liberation and freedom, and they usually have a large fan base. However, Protestants, they can have a fan base too, so I wanted to see if he was Catholic or Protestant, so I would know how to critique him here in our little video here. And they said he was in fact Catholic, so I was questioning why he wasn't wearing the green. And they said there was, they had something about Superman. I guess he came out to be Superman or something. You can't judge him because of the opponent he had. He just got his punches on the opponent quick, ended it fast. So there wasn't enough there for me to really give a good critique. But Irish fighters, Polish fighters, Italian fighters, they can get big, huge crowd problems. So that was my curiosity on the religious aspect of wearing the green. Back to you, Mike.
I thought he looked really, really crisp, really, really precise. That you don't usually see at the higher division, like this is a cruiserweight fight. I thought it was just extremely precise. Landed shots and congratulations, you know, he's an undefeated fighter. So we don't know how, we never could tell how good the undefeated fighter was because landing those clean shots so quickly. But I was impressed. And that was the fourth fight of the night. Now, also on the third fight, we had Malik Smalls versus Renzi Washington. And very competitive fight, very good fight. But Smalls just had a little too much punching power and just overwhelmed Washington. What do you think of that one?
I have to agree with
That
you
was
there.
the super featherweight fight, low junior lightweight fight.
I think all in all it was a fairly good card. Like I said, nobody looked like they were, you know, scraped up off the course running that. And it was a decent crowd. And looking for the next one was at November 22nd at Maryland Live Casino. I'm looking forward to seeing that and coming back here when they come back.
Yeah, the matchups were really kind of balanced matchups. The majority of these bouts went the distance. Because if you don't have too many mismatches, then they all end up first round knockouts. But the majority of these bouts went the distance. The next bout, Casey Wheeler and Shemaya Jones. Casey Wheeler, I think, ironically, I've seen live every one of her fights.
Did you get the
She moved up to 3-0 now. It's very impressive. Casey Wheeler just shredded. I've never seen a junior middleweight that big. She just ripped. So with that size advantage being brought to the table, to me, she's going to be tough to beat. And next we had Ezra Turner versus Joshua Ramin Diop. That was, entertaining while it lasted. Turner was a little more heavy-handed, had a little bit more precision. But Joshua Diop, very game fighter. And then the final bout, Nasheed Smith from DC versus Derek Van from Philadelphia. Nasheed Smith, he looked to me just in a class by himself. I think Tony Jeter had actually mentioned some things about him in a previous episode, and it definitely, I feel, lived up to expectations.
Right. I think the kid that was fighting there,
Derek Van.
Derek Van. I think he's got a little bit of skill because he was going in and out using the jab and everything. And like I said, I think this kid is just, that higher class. Not that Van was above him.
No.
For the time that he was in there, he represented himself quite well.
I think so. So that's the recap of the card. Very entertaining. The fight card, glad we came out. This is at Rosecroft Raceway. Again, the next one is going to be at Maryland Live Casino in November. Let's go ahead and talk about the fights this past weekend. Obviously, we saw what happened with Canelo and Crawford. I thought that there was a couple undercard fights that was very interesting. The super middleweight undercard fight between Christian Neely from Canada by way of Cameroon versus Lester Martinez. That was definitely the best fight of the night. What did you think of that show?
It was a great show. Like you said, Martinez came out with a draw. He was supposed to lose, and he represented himself really well. He fought really well, and I think he's got some good things in store for him coming up in the near future. The next fight on Walsh. You're right. I was very disappointed in the Junior. I expected a lot more. Because he was riding with his coattails and his daddy in the ring with him, and also I expected a lot more out of it. But the other kid, he boxed really well. He was, picked his punches well, executed them precisely, and came away with a decision. And with Canelo, that reminds me of Mickey Ward in the third fight with Gotti. You know, Mickey Ward said after that 10th round of that third fight, he all of a sudden just got old.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened to Canelo. Now, even if his opponent Crawford is older, you know, we all handle age differently. And, you know, he may not get old for a couple more fights, but that by the time I caught up with Canelo, and he did the right thing. I mean, you know, he retired after, you know, the stage retired, you know, invest his money properly, you know, what you said.
And you're right, he would handle age differently. Canelo, I think, has more wear and tear because starting earlier as a professional, he has had more big name fights, which means more difficult training, more difficult sparring partners. His body, like I said, the frame of his body isn't meant to go up that much, and so he's sparring with heavier guys, he's fighting heavier guys, so that really takes a toll. And you're right, he got old that night. But taking nothing away from Crawford, I mean, he was clearly the winner. One thing that I thought, you know, Canelo, as far as sparring partners going in, Canelo was sparring with Boots Ennis, phenomenal fight, and Crawford was sparring with Lester Martinez, who we saw in the undercard. And even though Canelo chose, I think, the better sparring partner, Crawford chose a more appropriate sparring partner. He mimics Canelo more, but he's bigger. He's actually bigger, naturally heavier, naturally taller. And also, it's important, Boots Ennis has been fighting for almost another month, so he's not necessarily having to peak at the same time. Whereas Lester Martinez fighting on the same night. But him and Crawford have to peak basically at the exact same time. Anything else before we close out here?
All right, it was a very entertaining night tonight, and I'd like to see more folks come out and support local boxing. Help these kids, you know, climb the ladder and keep the promoters, you know, in business so that they can continue this show, especially good operations like this.
Yeah.
Excellent operations.
Yeah. Great event, great production by Jetter Promotions. Fights were awesome. Had a great time. As always, thank you all for watching.